Chris Gauser here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss A Ghost Story, the terrifying, maybe not quite terrifying, new film from, of course, our fan favorite studio, A24. We're also going to discuss The Dark Tower, the latest Sting. It's Sting. See, when we screw up this quickly, I always have to restart. There's got to be a way to tighten this. I tried to tighten it with a screwdriver, I thought, but it won't tighten. I'm afraid if I tighten it too much, it'll break. It won't even turn.
Well, behind you, I can tell you behind you is not going to work.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
That's what I'm here for.
All right, let's try that again, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Chris Gauser here with
Now.
Let's try that again. Maybe my voice doesn't sound like I'm drowning in fluids.
We'll get it right. This third time. The whole show is going to go up perfectly, and it's going to be amazing.
That's right. When you think about it, I think it's amazing how well we usually do just in straight cuts. You know, I think it's just the experience of doing.
Well, I mean, you've been doing it for however long. I had a long interim in there, but it's still been a long time. So
yeah. All right, one more time for the cheap seats.
Okay.
Chris Gauser here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss A24's new terrifying supernatural drama film, A Ghost Story, starring Casey Affleck, who I think we're still on the fence about because of recent events, and then, of course, Rooney Mara. We'll also discuss the latest Stephen King adaptation, The Dark Tower, starring another first-run favorite, Idris Elba, and, of course, Matthew McConaughey of The Reconnaissance. Does that continue, Matt, with The Dark Tower? We got a lot to discuss. And then, of course, it's a return of the lounge, basically when Maddie and I just sit around and BS about stuff that we think is interesting. Hopefully you will too as well. But let's start everything off with a clip from A Ghost Story.
When I was little, we used to move all the time. I would write these notes, and I would fold them up really small, and I would hide them.
What did they say?
They were just like things I wanted to remember, so that if I ever wanted to go back, there'd be a piece of me there waiting.
All right, Matt. So if you don't recall, all the trailers for A Ghost Story were long on silence. And in fact, there aren't a lot of clips to pull from either for the show. So, and there's a reason for that, which we'll get into. But why don't you explain it for all the viewers on the road, on their commutes, or at home? What's A Ghost Story all about?
Okay, so it opens up on a young couple living in a house, played by Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. And basically, they're arguing about leaving the house. She wants to leave and he doesn't. And then Casey Affleck gets in a car accident and he dies, and he comes back as a ghost. And he looks like a Charlie Brown ghost. He's got the sheet, the eye holes cut in it. It's basically his shroud from the morgue. And basically, he comes back and he haunts the house, and he's basically a silent presence throughout this house and all the events that are happening in it. And that's basically it in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
To it, but that's the basic plot.
So, how did you feel about the fact that this is not a film about scares? This is not a horror film, a ghost story. All right, I want to point that out, everybody. If you're going into a ghost story thinking you're going to get the pants scared off you, that's not going to happen here. That's not what we're talking about. Did you feel? Did you feel a little disappointed by that? Did you want Casey Affleck really doing some damage and doing some poltergeist stuff?
No, I wasn't disappointed by that at all. It wasn't. I mean, it was. I knew going in it wasn't that type of film. I knew it was more of a kind of a. I mean, as pretentious as this sounds, kind of one of those indie meditation character study kind of things, and I didn't really know what to expect going in as far as how that would play out. But I knew it wasn't going to be a scary movie, and I appreciated that. I mean, that's not really what I was in the mood to see, and I don't think it would have worked at all if they had tried to be a scary film, horror film, if you will.
I agree entirely. So what are your thoughts about the film? So was it successful? Does A24 continue its winning streak with us?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. And in this movie actually really grew on me as it progressed. They don't give you a lot of background information. They kind of leave you to be smart enough to figure out what's going on. Even through the beginning of it, I mean, they don't tell you what the problem is. You kind of have to infer and put everything together. Even Casey Affleck's death happens off screen. It's just all of a sudden it's the scene and he's like crashing a car and that's it. And then he's in the morgue. It doesn't matter, that kind of stuff. So it requires you to kind of really pay attention to what's going on. And as you said, there's not a whole lot of dialogue in this film. I mean, the part where the film almost lost me, there is a long scene of Rooney Mara eating a pie. And that just got really tough to watch after a while. I was like, where are they going with this? Because, I mean, it just went on and on and on. But, I mean, the rest of it is great. And I thought the way that the thing that they did about, and I don't know if we want to, would it be a spoil explaining how it works in this, do you think?
Let's just say I don't think so, because I think this film is more, it's a dramedy about loss, right? And then eventually potentially maybe finding a way to move on.
Right.
That's what this film's about. So I don't know if there's really spoilers are an issue for this, as long as we don't maybe reveal the ultimate fate of C. Which of course, keep in mind, they don't have names, right? Right. They're just known, I guess, as C and M. Casey Affleck is C, Rooney is M. But no, I think you're okay.
Yeah. Also, I thought it was really interesting. So basically, Casey Affleck, he didn't want to leave this house when he was alive, and he becomes tied to this place, and he's actually rooted to it. So it's not, when Rooney Mara ends up leaving after their funeral and she packs up and she leaves, he's still in that house, and it basically it kind of flashes through time. And basically, what's interesting about it is it's unclear if Casey Affleck is jumping through time. Is he like sitting through all of these times period, or just because of the fact that he's a ghost that he's jumping, 10 years later, when a different family's living in it, 15 years later when it's now a college flop house, 30 years later, and on and on and on. And then
100 years in the past, or 200 years in the past.
Yeah, and then and it loops back around. It's very interesting that they did that.
I think it's more that I don't know if I think he's not an active participant in the time stuff. It's not like he's a time lord or something. There's a little geek shout out for you, but I think it's more he's unmoored from time. I think that time passes in an unusual way, sometimes seconds or years, whatever the case may be. But I think he's just unmoored. I don't think it's any active actions he takes to do that. Because I think there's scenes when he appears surprised, which may seem like a weird thing because he's in a sheet the whole time. And it must have been, and I was wondering as I was watching it, I'm like, is that really Casey Affleck? Did they just kind of film Affleck scenes and then just hire some guy off the street to do the sheet scenes? But it is indeed him.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So, and I guess what they had some issues is where they had they were initially just going to go with the sheet, but it didn't work because even a king size sheet didn't cover him completely. You could still see his feet. So they created this cloth apparatus thing, or like additional garments around his arms, and then kind of to weigh him down a little bit too. So then it'd have to be kind of exaggerated, but then there would still be slowish movements. So, but it was Casey Affleck throughout the whole thing. So, yeah, I agree with you. That pie scene, it's not going to go down in history as one of my all-time favorite pie eating scenes. I think we all know which one that is. But still, it did almost.
Oh, I went there. Sorry, guys.
it did almost lose me at that point. But then I think I finally came on board with what the why isn't my computer responding? Here we go. What David Lowery was doing. He was the director. He did Ain't Them Bodies Saints. Well, also with Casey Affleck, Rooney Mara, and Ben Foster from a few years ago, which is a film I really like. And of course, he did the new version of Pete's Dragon that's supposed to be good, which I have not seen. But yeah, I was like, there are some at times unbearably long takes in this thing. There truly are. And I could think that would turn off some people. This is not an easily accessible film. But if you're patient, I think, and willing to go along with it, I think it reveals a lot, and I think it's very interesting. I think it's the most original thing I've seen in years.
Yeah.
You know, in a movie wave that we're dealing with right now, Matt, where it's all superhero films and sequels and adaptations of established properties that we all know. You know, just to get something this new and original, I found very refreshing, and I'm glad we got to see it. And it's got a great score. You know, anybody who listens to the show knows that I'm a big film score junkie, and I think this one was really good. And it's beautifully shot. I mean, there are some really gorgeous scenes in this thing, even though we're mostly confined to a house for the majority of the film.
Yeah, and let's not underestimate. I mean, let's not downplay the fact. I mean, you know, obviously, recent events thinking of him what you want, but I mean, just even the emotion that he can just, you know, convey, and like the frustration and then bewilderment and like, you know, the sadness, and he's in a freaking sheet. I mean, you know, Casey Affleck is great in this. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. This is not a film for everybody. I would encourage everybody to give it a try, but I couldn't recommend this. There are very few people I could 100% recommend it. I would say to anyone, go see it, but know that you may not be on board with this. I ended up being on board with this. I mean, I think besides the pie eating scene and then that scene at the table where the guy's pontificating endlessly, I was like, man, do I sound like that sometimes? I'm like, maybe I do.
I was thinking the same thing, but I was also like, part of me was thinking that Lowery just put that scene in there because the film's been so damn quiet for so damn long.
Sure.
That we need to have some type of verbal oratory satisfaction somewhere. So let's go on this 10-minute self-indulgent speech about just how meaningless we all are.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, I was into it. Before I give it a letter grade, do you think it matters? Do you think it matters what the note to Casey Affleck said?
No, I was thinking about that, and I think what's great about it is it lives it up to your interpretation of what the note is. I think Lowery obviously did that on purpose, and he wants you, I think, to just feel maybe what was it that gave C his conclusory, which is I don't think is a word, moment without saying anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's kind of like kind of struck me as a bit of a loss in translation moment where people, I think if anybody are going to talk about it, they're going to talk about what that note say. But I don't think it matters. And I think I like how he kind of leaves it up to. I was kind of nervous that he was going to like linger on the note and we would see what it said, but he didn't. And so I appreciated that. I like that kind of ambiguity to the whole thing.
Yeah, it was the right decision. And you get to decide what you think it is. I feel I know what it said, but I will see. I don't think it was like a Scarlett Johansson, Bill Murray lost in translation. By the way, we know what she said, Matt. And I'll actually share it to you. It's, you are 65 and I'm a 20-year-old Scarlett Johansson. This is creepy. Go away.
Even if you are Bill Murray.
So yeah, no, it doesn't matter.
So if I'm going to give this thing a letter grade, I'm going to give it an A-. I think I think we've established that Chris and I are both of a bit of an artsy, pretentious bent. I enjoyed this kind of film.
Very much so.
I think it has some, it requires a little work on the audience. So if you're willing to put that in, I think you can get a lot of appreciation out of it. And even in the parts that, I thought were interminable, it'd be interesting to watch them again, knowing how long they go, or if they're just as bad or at least as long the second time around.
I wonder if they'll feel longer.
Yeah, maybe they will. Maybe they will. Or maybe it's like listening to a song, whereas it sounds really long the first time you hear it, and then it sounds shorter and shorter every time you listen to it. So I don't know. But yeah, I really like this. I think this is another win from A24, man. They're just knocking it out of the park. Every time I see an A24 film, I'm like, well, it's probably going to be at least worth checking out. So good job, guys.
I agree. And do you need to rush the theaters to see this, Matt?
I would recommend that everybody do see it in the theater. I don't know if you're going to lose anything, especially with the decision that it's framed like almost in, I don't know, what is that, like 4:8? It's almost like a TV frame. So like there's a lot of empty space on the sides. It looks like a Viewmaster thing, like
that's exactly what I was
window.
thinking. Yeah.
But I mean, again, I think this goes back to what we were talking about when we were talking about The Nice Guys last year and Baby Driver, which fortunately was successful. But this is, if you want to see these type of movies get made, I mean, you should go out and support them in the theater. So I'd recommend that you do so.
I agree entirely. That's why I would push you to go see it in the theater. I'll give you an A- grade on this as well. And I just realized when I write the scores, I write C and M, just like in the movie.
Ah, that's so crazy. I have a note for you right here. Someday you'll see it.
You're sticking it in the wall between the trim.
Yep.
Well, good thing is that they only cost them $100,000 to make this film. That's it, $100,000.
Wow. All right. Well, good on them. Then they have to have at least made way more than their money back at this point.
Yeah, 1.4, I guess, is what the box office is reported to be as of yesterday. So we'll see. Interesting. Awesome. If you got a chance to see a ghost story, please shoot us an email at feedback@thefirsttorun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think was in the note? I think it was more just a, turn the lights off when you leave type of thing. Unplug the iron. All right, Matt, let's move on. Let's say it's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD this upcoming Tuesday. That's going to be August 15th. A subject that I find fascinating. There's a documentary out there called Patent Scam. If you're not familiar with patent trolling, that's what happened. These attorneys or these groups go ahead, Matt, and they buy the process behind something. Like one of the examples they use, I watched like first, I guess you can watch the opening 10, 20 minutes of this movie on YouTube. And some attorney or some corporation bought the using of Wi-Fi, not the invention of it, but how you use it, and then would sue people for using it because saying they're violating the copyright. So there's this whole move. Adam Carolla had a big thing too, because he was sued by somebody who bought the patent to how podcasts work, not the technology, just a dissemination of serialized episodes online. And he won that lawsuit, thankfully. But it's just a whole document. So I'm curious to check that out. I got to tell you, I love the guy who is, I guess, leading in this documentary. Go to YouTube, just look up Patent Scam and watch him. He reminds me kind of just like, he's kind of a, how do I say this? He's just not your typical Hollywood pretty boy. And there's just there's an authenticity about him that I just really enjoyed. So you can check that out. There's also the film, at least the part I saw, has a very cheap, almost, Photoshop elements, type of quality to it. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. But if hopefully this will hit Netflix, or I'll find a way to watch it, which means I could just rent the damn thing, lazy son of a bitch. All right. What else is coming up? There's something I want to talk about with you at some point. There is an actor, Matt, that I really, really enjoy, but I feel I'm lacking, I should say, in his overall oeuvre, and that's Gene Hackman. I have always really enjoyed Gene Hackman. Is he considered a great, or is he considered just, I always, like, you don't think of his name when you think of the De Niros, the Brandos, but I think there's an everyman quality. And then I just think Hackman has been one of our greatest actors.
Yeah, I think he is. He's underappreciated. That's a good point. He's kind of like this. He's teetering on. He's like a really solid character actor that has somehow stumbled into a few great leading roles, and I think that's kind of what his niche is. And you guys ready to kick me off the show? You ready to kick me off the show?
Well,
I have actually never seen The French Connection.
Ah, that is disappointing, man. I don't know what to say about that because neither have I.
No. Okay, good.
What's funny is that what I actually about a month ago I bought it because it was on sale for $5 on iTunes.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I love Hackman. I haven't seen. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I've seen The French Connection. I own it. I love that film. I was thinking about The Conversation. It was The Conversation was $5 on iTunes, and I'd never seen it, so I wanted to buy that. So I think we should maybe do a Hackman marathon of stuff. I think that'd be good. I love me some Gene. So anyway, one of his lesser-known films-ish, I guess, Night Moves is being released, where he plays a private eye. I watched a trailer for it. It's like peak cheesy 70s, but I think it might be something I want to check out. Criterion is giving us Hopscotch, starring Walter Matthau and Glenda Jackson. It's a nimble tale of international intrigue from British filmmaker Ronald Neame, based on Brian Garfield's best-selling novel. The blithe thriller centers on Miles Kending, played by Matthau, a disillusioned retired CIA agent who, with the help of a chic and savvy Viennese widow, threatens to publish his memoirs and expose the innermost secrets of every major intelligence agency in the world. Includes a UK digital restoration, interviews from 2002 with the director and writer, and an appearance on the Dick Cavett show of Walter Matthau in 1980. Criterion is also giving us Meantime, a slow-burning depiction of economic degradation in Thatcher's England, directed by Michael Lee. Includes a new digital restoration, 2K I should say, a new conversation with Lee and musician Jarvis Cocker, and some other features as well. Doug Liman's The Wall, the film he did with Aaron Taylor Johnson and who's the wrestler everybody loves? John Cena. That's being released as well. Includes another commentary with Lyman and Taylor Johnson. Alien Covenant, Matt. Being released on Blu-ray. If you buy it from Walmart, you get an Alien Day fan art design t-shirt. If you buy it from Target, you get a 36-page book featuring an inside look at David's lab and the creatures of Alien Covenant, plus behind-the-scenes photography and concept sketches. That's the version I'm leaning towards. And then Best Buy, just you get the Steelbook and the sketches and behind-the-scenes stuff as well. I'm sorry, nope, that's wrong.
You're gonna buy this?
Steelbook. Sorry?
You're gonna buy this?
I think so. I think I will. I mean, I bought Prometheus, and I liked Covenant, I think, more than Prometheus. Yeah, I don't know. The film hasn't sat with me as well as I thought it would as time has passed. I think I enjoyed it at the time, but the further I'm removed from it, the more I think I've liked it. I've noticed too, I've had a shift in myself lately that when before I would buy stuff to build my collection, and then I kind of changed my criterion for purchasing films. But recently, I've really come down. I've been a lot harder on myself, Matt, on my rewatching. You know, like I used to say, I'm not going to buy something unless I'm going to rewatch it at least once. So what's the point? Why not just rent it? Right. And but I was pretty loose with that. I'd be more of a ambiguous kind of, maybe someday I'll watch it. But I actually will sit with myself for like 5 minutes and kind of go through the process. With everything that's coming out, everything going on in my life, am I ever really going to watch this again? So my movie purchasing has really dropped because of that.
Yeah, you gotta cut it off at some point. You know, I haven't really. I mean, it has to be something that I really love and I know I'm going to rewatch more than once for even me to consider it. I've evidenced by the thousands, at least hundreds of DVDs and probably dozens of Blu-rays that, although I'm a lot better with Blu-rays, but yeah, that I've just never, even though I bought them.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues I have though is the iTunes stuff. I think I'm more inclined maybe to purchase digital stuff, especially if it's cheaper. Especially like that $5. I got The Conversation, I got The Sting, and I got something else, all for $5 a pop. And you can't at that point. You're gonna rent it. You're gonna cost that much to rent it anyway. But I guess I could get it at the library. Now that I think about it. Anyway, your straight to DVD pick of the week, Matt. I'm going with Rogue Warrior, Robot Fighter.
Okay.
A few decades from now, Matt, Sienna, a rebellious robot fighting arms dealer, lives on a post-apocalyptic Earth. When the cities start to fall under the control of an AI scourge, a hyper-weaponized robot army Sienna decides to leave the Earth and journey to the center of the galaxy, seeking a mythical weapon that can neutralize any form of AI. Pursued by giant machines, Sienna loses everything she cares about in an effort to save the last vestiges of humanity in an AI-controlled galaxy. It just looks like one of these cheesy sci-fi films. So we always like to push those here on the straight to DVD pick of the week.
I do. Although we don't like watching the straight to DVD picks, as evidenced by that awful marathon that we did. That was such a slog.
That was difficult. So what should we be streaming this week, man? Anything in particular?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with something a little more obscure. This used to be on Netflix for a really long time. It disappeared years ago. And then it hasn't been back on any of the streaming services since, though I just found it again on Hulu. This is The Orphanage, which is like a Spanish, really creepy as hell horror movie. It's about a woman who buys her childhood home, moves her family back into it. It was at one point an orphanage for handicapped children, and then her son starts talking to somebody who's not there, or is it? Creepy as hell horror movie. It's really, really good. You know, if you like kind of that atmospheric, like just creepy ass horror, just check it out. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, no, I love The Orphanage. That's one I own. I remember I took Carrie, friend of the show, Carrie, to go see it. One of the things she hates the most is creepy kids, and this film is chock full of them. So, yeah, no, The Orphanage is a great pick. If you haven't seen it, I can't recommend it enough. It's this great kind of gothic horror type stuff. So yeah, it's in Spanish, so folks. So just a heads up.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people speak Spanish, so it's not like it's.
That's true, and we are international, so I can't really say that.
That's true.
All right, let's move on, Matt. Let's talk about a film I think at one point you may have been excited about.
Yeah, at one point.
We'll see if that holds. Let's hear a clip from The Dark Tower.
For thousands of generations, the gunslingers were knights, sworn to protect us from the coming of the dark.
These visions, as you call them. What do you see?
I see a tower, a man in black, and the gunslinger.
They're just dreams. They're not real, Jake.
There's another world out there. I know there is. Oh.
Who are you?
It's you. You're a gunslinger, right?
There are no gunslingers. Not anymore.
Why does the man in black want to destroy the tower?
The tower protects both our worlds. If it falls, hell will be unleashed.
He's like the devil, isn't he?
No, he's worse.
You can't stop what's coming. Death always wins.
All right, Matt, The Dark Tower, or should I say more like The Dull Tower.
What? Am I right? Yeah, you take that, Stephen
King. All right, so The Dark Tower. Let's talk about it, Matt. You have, you know what you're familiar with much more of the concepts. You've read the books, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to punish you and talk to us again. Okay. What's The Dark Tower about?
Okay, well, The Dark Tower, the film, is about a boy named Jake Chambers who lives in New York, and he's having visions of this other world, a man in black who's played by Matthew McConaughey, a cowboy knight errant called a gunslinger played by Idris Elba, and a tower that holds the universe together, and he's having these visions and dreams. And then it turns out through the events of the films that he finds out that all of this stuff is real. It's not just him being crazy. And he basically takes a portal to another world where the gunslinger and the man in black and the tower actually are. And that's basically the story is, you know, the man in black is after him because he's got powers and trying to destroy the tower, and the gunslinger trying to kill the man in black and keep Jake alive.
So I have some questions for you. First off,
sure.
All right. Initially, this was thought, right, this was going to be an adaptation of the books. And what are there, 9 of them?
Right.
And you just
7.
squeezed
But no, 8. 8.
Eight.
8.
Thank you. 8 of them squeezed into a 95-minute film. It turns out that's not the case.
Right.
Matt. This is actually a
That's
sequel
very true.
to the book series.
Right.
So is it in the spirit? Does it continue the story? Do you feel like it's this 9th novel? How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, so kind of one of the things, and spoiler alert for a 20-year-old novel series, but essentially what the book is about is that Roland, who's the gunslinger, he keeps repeating this cycle. He goes after the Man in Black, he gets to the tower, he stops the Man in Black from going into the tower and destroying it, and then it loops back to the beginning, and he starts it all over again. And the idea is that Walter, the Man in Black, he keeps trying it over and over and over again, and at one point he's going to succeed. And that's basically what this is. So the book series is basically the story of one of Roland's attempts to stop the Man in Black, in which he's successful. And this is basically started over from the beginning, and now it's going forward slightly different, or actually I should say majorly different than the events of the book, even though it has a lot of the same characters.
So, where do you come down? I'm curious. Do you think was this a fitting homage? Were you happy? Can you separate it from the series and just enjoy it on its own?
Yeah. Yes and no. So I was happy that they were doing it that way. I thought it was a clever way to kind of, you could take the source material and kind of excise some of the stuff that doesn't work, because make no mistake, folks, there's a lot in the book series that doesn't work, and I was not a fan of at all. And I thought this was a good opportunity to get rid of some of that stuff, but stay true to the spirit of the story. The problem is that they try and do too much into one film. I mean, basically, they resolve the entire thing in a 90-minute film, and at the beginning of this, I was actually on board with it. I was actually pretty much enjoying it. I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad, when they had the, Jake and the visions and, all that kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden they just kind of barrel to the end, and like the stuff that took, thousands of pages to tell. I mean, they basically wrap it up in 45 minutes, and it's like, okay, well, what's gonna happen now? So I don't know. I don't know what their ultimate plans were, but yeah, it wasn't successful at all. I was really disappointed. A lot of the stuff that was cool about it, they kind of excised. They excised a lot of the fat, but they got rid of a lot of the good stuff too.
It's weird. I feel like something with that much of a storied history to it could be diminished into just this hour-and-a-half film, and I feel that's a big weakness of the movie, man. I feel like there could have been more here. I think it was. I walked out of that theater just kind of wanting. I just felt it became just a typical, your kind of fantasy action Western film. There was nothing really novel or interesting about it for me at all. Conceptually, I guess in the beginning, and how all the realities are somehow linked, and how we get all the teases. There's a lot of Easter eggs in here for all of Stephen King's properties, and from what I understand too, the Dark Tower series establishes the fact that all of his books kind of happen in the same universe, just in different realities, I guess.
Yeah,
but the whole thing was just I just felt like the film was kind of inert. I agree with you in the beginning that it was interesting, and I thought we were going to some interesting places. I like the visions stuff. One thing I really feel McConaughey was just almost too reserved in this. I feel like I wanted him to be chewing the scenery and really just kind of, I don't know what it is. I felt I needed more than I got from him here. I don't know if that's a weakness of the script. I don't know if it's a decision on his part, but I feel like he could have been bigger. I don't know if I want Pacino and Devil's Advocate bigger, but I think I could have been a little more of a pronounced character for him. Now, is he supposed to be the devil, or is he more just like this trans-dimensional, just evil guy? What's his story?
Think of him. So if
because he's also Flag from It, or I mean not It, The Stand, right? It's the same guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's he's basically supposed to be kind of like this evil guy that appears throughout the whole thing. So I guess if Roland is supposed to be like a descendant of Arthur, think of the Man in Black or Walter as a descendant of Merlin. He's like a super powerful wizard who has like against Roland and that whole thing. So, I mean, I'm with you. I think McConaughey, he kind of walks this line of like whether he wants to kind of really ham it up and chew up the scenery, or if he wants to have like this kind of subdued, quiet menace thing, and he doesn't really pick either one, so it doesn't end up working. So I think if he had gone one way or the other, I think it would have probably been more successful. Like when he has Jake's mom in her room, he's actually pretty scary in that moment, and he's pretty effective. But then other times when he's trying to kind of like, I don't know, taunt Roland and menace his minions and stuff like that, it's just like, this looks like your math teacher or something trying to be cool and scary kind of stuff. I mean, it just didn't work. And honestly, there were scenes, and I understand he's still in way better shape than me, and he's a much prettier man than me, but he's starting to show his age a little bit, and it didn't seem to. I don't know why that was distracting, but it was. And the other thing, and honestly, I was not impressed with Idris Elba. I know that there was a lot of initial outcry about his casting because it's described in the book as basically, even by Stephen King, as kind of like a young Clint Eastwood. He's basically the man with no name is kind of his basis kind of thing. But I don't know, Idris Elba, he just doesn't seem to have the kind of blank killer aspect to him. Like, it just doesn't work. And I don't know why. I think it's just because of knowing the character from the book, but he just doesn't seem to fit as a casting. I mean, it's a shame that there's a lot of great actors in this. Jackie Earle Haley's in this for a bit role. He doesn't really do that much, but it's a shame that they kind of use a lot of these great actors and it just doesn't work for them. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's their decisions or if it's the directing or the writing or what.
Yeah, I had a note about Elba too, but I think I felt he was handcuffed by Adele Film. I don't put it on him. I think it's more the weak script and possibly just kind of lackluster, almost paint by numbers direction by RSL. I don't blame Elba for this. I don't. I think he still really hasn't. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I feel he hasn't found a property or a role yet that really suits his talents. I think outside of Luther, which if you haven't seen, which I think is on Netflix, great show. But film-wise, especially him in the Dark Tower, I just think he was undermined by a poor script and adult film. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's Elba, but I think the guy has a presence, and we just have to find a way to harness it to its best ability. Kind of like we found Keanu's niche with John Wick, and even Kristen Stewart in Personal Shopper.
Right.
So still, I don't know. I think he's exceptionally underserved in this film, and also the conclusion of the film for me was exceptionally anticlimactic.
Yeah.
How he's able to take out McConaughey.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like really that's it. We just got to do some bullet tricks and we're good to go.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, like even in the book,
and he's a wizard, and the bullet can take him out. Is he a super special bullets? I don't quite understand. I get this. I get that his gun is made out of remnants of Excalibur, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, and that's one of the other big failings. They take all the subtext of the book, and even the book is not even that subtle. But I mean, like it's never explained. Like in the book, they leave you to understand that they talk about the Arthur Eld and how his guns have been passed down from him and all that kind of stuff. They leave it to you to understand that this is supposed to be this version of Arthur. But of course, Matthew McConaughey, I believe the Earthers call it Excalibur. It's like, come on, dude. Yes, we all get it. Yes, I understand. And I think that's a big failing. They take a lot of what subtext is there and just making it explicit text. But I think even in the books, Walter is afraid of Roland because it's not like he can stop like he's invincible or he can stop Roland's bullets. Like he's trying to actively stay away from him because those guns can kill him, and that's why that's why the whole catching the bullet behind his back, like in the book, like he wouldn't have even gotten anywhere near him because he could have been killed by Roland, and that's why they were he was trying to stay ahead of him. So that doesn't make any sense, the decision of why they do that. And even the action, again, I keep harping back on the book, but he's supposed to be so fast you can't even see him. That and I think it would have been a lot Elba, like with the guns and stuff like that. they do a lot of like slow-mo and bullet time stuff to kind of display that. I think it would have been a lot better if they had done it full speed and like just speeded him up to kind of see how it all went. I thought that would have been a lot more effective. Just disappointed all around. I'm just the whole thing was just a mess.
Fair enough. I think that's where I struggle with it, because if he can catch the bullet behind his ear without looking, then what are we dealing about? What are we worried about here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
I don't know.
That was a bad writing choice. That was a bad writing change. And there were a lot of them in this film.
There's an interesting article out there that might be on Birth, Movies, and Death. I'm not sure. You can just Google it, but it basically blames all the Dark Tower's failings on Akiva Goldsman, the screenwriter. And if he goes through Goldsman's whole book of business there, if you will, and it is not good. So it's interesting to read. Just Google it. I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
Okay.
Where do you come down, Maddie, on the Dark Tower? What's your grade?
I'm gonna give it a D.
D.
D. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I was on board with it for the first like 20 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, this is like a C plus B minus film."
Mm-hmm.
I like this better than Batman versus Superman. Then I was like, "Oh no, this is bad." As it just kept going and going and going. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not good, and it's really unfortunate because obviously this not going to spawn a franchise. I'd be extremely surprised if the TV show ends up happening.
The prequel show? And then
I mean, it's based on the fourth book, which is a backstory, which I think is my favorite of the books. But yeah, it's not going to happen. It's too bad. It's a shame.
Yeah, I'm at that. I don't think it's horrible. It's not Valerian bad or
well, that's true. You have that as a frame of reference, or I do not.
We also saw something else really horrible this year, and I'm blanking on. But yeah, it's not that bad. But like I said, it's just dull, and it doesn't really give anything. It doesn't provide you anything for anybody. I don't really know who this film's for. It doesn't do anything for the core audience of the books, right? It doesn't present anything interesting for somebody who hasn't seen them or read the books. So, which is too bad because I like the mishmash of the Old West and the sorcery crap, all that kind of stuff put together. I think it would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But not in this film. And again, I always feel, I don't know what it is, I always feel cheated whenever somebody in a sci-fi horror or fantasy thing ends up going to modern day Earth. I don't know what it is. I always feel like it's a cop-out. Like the only time it's ever really worked, of course, Matt, would be Star Trek 4. But still, and even then it is a cop-out for that film as well, but it's entertaining.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. Yeah, it's fine. But I'm giving it a C minus. It's not horrible. I just don't understand the point of the film. But Elba is entertaining enough, and I like enough pieces that I think it's worth. I think you'll enjoy it if it's a rainy Saturday afternoon and you got nothing to do and it happens to be on TV. Then check it out. But that's the highest.
Yeah. It's got nuggets of good
push I could give to it. Yeah. All right. If you've had a chance to see The Dark Tower, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Matt, let's move on then to the lounge. Lots of stuff to talk about, including what we think we're going to discuss some favorite fan theories about some movies. So let's get into that when we get back.
Take off that mask. You don't need it.
What do you think you'll see if I do?
The face of my son.
Your son, he's gone. He was weak and foolish like his father. So I destroyed him.
That's what Snoke wants you to believe. But it's not true. My son is alive.
No. The Supreme Leader is wise.
Snoke is using you for your power. When he gets what he wants, he'll crush you. You know it's true.
It's too late.
No, it's not. Leave here with me. Come home. I miss you.
So, of course, Matt, spoilers, if you don't know by now, that is the beginning of the death of Han Solo from the latest Star Wars film. You know what I find interesting, Matt?
Yeah.
I keep forgetting the secondary title of that film. The Force Awakens. I don't know what it is. I can't seem to stick it in my head. I'm wondering if I'm just running out of hard drive space in the old noggin.
Yeah, we're starting to get old, Chris. I mean, you're going to learn something new and forget how to drive, as the old Simpsons quote goes.
There you are. So, Matt, this all started because you brought up a theory to me via text that Han Solo is the one that turns on the lightsaber and kills himself to help maybe redeem his son Ben down the road,
right?
By not having to kill him himself, which I call BS. But why don't you get into this theory for us? All right?
Yeah. So essentially, when they have the confrontation on the walkway, Kylo Ren says, there's something I have to do, and I don't know if I can do it. Will you help me? And basically, the idea is that Snoke wants him to kill his father, in order to kind of send him into the dark side completely, kind of thing. And the theory is that Han knows that if that Kylo Ren is struggling with this, Ben is struggling with this, he doesn't want to do it, and that if he doesn't kill Han, then Snoke is going to kill him, because he's obviously cannot be pushed to the dark side completely. There's always going to be a nugget of goodness in him. So the theory is that what Han actually does is, when he goes to take the lightsaber, he turns it on himself and basically takes away the responsibility of Kylo Ren having to kill his father. His father is dead, so Snoke won't leave him alone, but it will not kill him. But there's still a little bit of goodness because he never went and did that final thing. So it's kind of like the Vader thing, I can still feel the good in you kind of thing, so that there's still a hope for redemption for him.
First off, that always blew my mind, and I think possibly because the prequels really hammered home. When he kills all the younglings, Anakin, how can there be any redemption left of him at that point? He slaughters, like a couple dozen kids?
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing is, don't even get me started on episode 3. That should have been the whole freaking trilogy right there, because he literally goes from, oh my God, I've killed Sam Jackson, what have I done, to literally 5 minutes later killing a bunch of 5-year-olds. So it's so fast the way he moves through that whole thing. Yeah, but I'm with you. I mean, I guess once you kill you maybe be redeemed after killing one Jedi 5-year-old, but when you kill 10 of them, it's over.
There's no going back. So well, let's get back to the matter at hand. I watched again I actually watched the whole clip when I was pulling the audio, and I don't buy it, because you see Kylo's face when the lightsaber goes through him. I don't see an ounce of regret or hesitation there. He's all in at that point. So I don't know. Feel free to watch that scene again, Matt. Let me know your thoughts. I think it's an interesting theory, but I don't know. I just don't know if it makes sense to me.
Well, I guess we'll find out soon enough, right? I mean, we'll find out, whether, we think what's-his-face can be redeemed come December. I'm pretty stoked for this. I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Are you going to see Ryan Johnson and Mark Hamill basically told everybody to go into an embargo on any further information, trailers, clips, everything, because of
I did see that. Yeah. And I've noticed that Disney hasn't released a lot of information on this. I mean, we've got one trailer and maybe one behind the scenes featurette thing. That's really just kind of a montage of them doing stuff. So, I mean, they're really rolling it back, which I appreciate. So we'll see. Although I want to see more at the same time.
Mm-hmm. We'll try not to. I'm going to try and avoid everything I possibly can. I already read an article, I think it was on Esquire, because they're saying how they're going to ruin The Last Jedi, because basically from everything they've pieced together, it's basically just another remake of The Empire Strikes Back, being that The Force Awakens was just a remake of the original film. But who knows?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think that there's something the whole... Because I kind of think of it as if you look at the 3 trilogies, what are going to be the 3 trilogies, they kind of all repeat the same process. So is it fair to say that it's when people complain about it, I always think of it more like like a poem, right? It's like a stanza of a poem. It's the same. The details may change, but the rules are the same for every single one of them. It's like it's an intentional device. Do you think Lucas is clever enough to have made it be an intentional device, or is it just something where they're applying to it later?
Did you say is Lucas just lazy enough that that's what he did?
No, clever enough. Clever enough.
I think you're saying that wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't. I think one interesting thing was, and we can talk about it, but I wasn't going to bring it up, but there was one theory that the whole series is told from the perspective of R2-D2, and that's why the acting is so wooden, and he has this outsized hero role in some of the films. That's why he can fly. This is all stories being relayed by R2.
You know what? Nerds we just have way too much time on our hands. We got way too much idle thinking time to come up with this stuff.
So what do you think? While we're on Star Wars, one theory is that Snoke was a youngling that survived the slaughter.
Interesting. I had not heard that. I don't know. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. That would be something to see, I guess. I don't know. I don't have a lot of thoughts on that. Okay. What do you think?
Could be. Who knows? I just thought it was an interesting idea. So let's move on to actually one of the biggest ones out there that I think is complete BS if you really just think about it. But is that James Bond is not actually an individual agent. He's a code name passed on from agent to agent. So one dies, the next guy comes up, and now that's James Bond. The reason being because,
well, as the James Bond super fan, you think it's BS?
Yes, because first I get some of the thought process behind it is the fact that a lot of people know who he is, which doesn't really make it for you to be a great super spy. Everybody knows who you are. Being a world famous spy is an oxymoron. You don't want to be a world famous spy. But the issue they always go back is it's a way to explain the different actors. But that I think is undone because chiefly just because of the opening of what is it? Is it Octopussy? One of the later Roger Moore films where he's actually at the grave of Teresa, who is from the one time Bond actually got married and she was killed by Blofeld. He's at her grave with the flowers, and they come pick him up for a mission, but it's actually Blofeld, and it's a whole thing. But still, so I think that the whole thing is just kind of obliterated just by that. One of the things they say is to strengthen that theory is because the opening of On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby, there's a fight scene and at the end of that, right before the opening credits kick in, he turns to the camera and says, "Well, this never happened to the other fellow." And it's more, but that's more of just a cheeky nod to the fact that they've transitioned the role to a new guy than an establishment of an alternative reality where there's different agents playing James Bond. I think the key that Teresa exists in all of the Bond films up until the Craig relaunch kind of just negates that whole thing.
I see. Yeah, I don't buy into that theory at all. I mean, it seems like a lame way to try and explain how this goes. I mean, I think you're reaching for straws. Everybody knows why they're doing it, and the problem is when you run into theories like that, it's just because explain away it'd be something in canon for the realities of real life. I mean, obviously Sean Connery couldn't play James Bond forever, and not that he would want to, or even that he would be capable of doing it forever. So yeah, I mean, I have no, it's dumb. I mean, I don't like those kinds of theories where it's like people focus on just because of the realities of making a film that it suddenly has time. Yeah, it has some meaning to it. I mean, like the R2-D2 one that you said. I've read another one where and C-3PO are all secret rebel agents, which would explain why they don't know about the fact that Darth Vader is Luke's father and all that kind of stuff, or that Darth Vader is Anakin, because obviously they were all there. In fact, C-3PO was created by Anakin for the first trilogy, so it explains their gap. And I can understand trying to come up with something because of lazy writing like that, but I mean, just because it's a different person, just let it go, guys.
I don't get that. Why, just because they're secret agents, they would not know? Explain that to me. I'm not following the process.
Well, it's not that they don't know. It's that they're intentionally keeping the information secret.
Okay.
So that they're basically they're using their information that they know about the rise of the Galactic Empire. They know it's Anakin Skywalker to kind of feed information. Why they don't spread this far and why, I don't know. Maybe there's some reason, but there's some kind of reason that they're trying to keep it from like Han and to kind of steer them into taking actions that they want them to take.
You're thinking like Luke would not have gone after Vader if he knew he was his father?
Maybe, or maybe he would have joined, you know, if from the very beginning, maybe he would have gone and tried to be, or maybe he would have gotten his, you know, dumb farm boy butt captured right away. Who knows? So maybe that's why they were trying to keep him under the radar.
Fair enough. What else you got?
All right, so this one, well, I shouldn't say this one, but have you gone down the rabbit hole of how many Tarantino theories there are for his various films?
No, I know there's the general consensus that there's a two-universe QT theory, and some of his films reside in the Quentin Tarantino reality. So there's the heightened ones, basically they're movies in his version of reality, like Kill Bill and Glorious Bastards are movies in the greater reality which exists, which is Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, and then of course the Jackie Brown.
Yeah.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, I mean, I heard the theory that Kill Bill and like From Dusk to Dawn are actual movies in the thing, but the other one I've heard is that basically Inglourious Bastards is the break. Like its human history was the same up until Inglourious Bastards, and then everything else after that is in an alternative universe. And that's kind of why the Pulp or all of his films are kind of hyper reality. It's because of they changed something so fundamental as how World War II ended that everything is completely different. And that's where the break is. And then even more mundane, but it's that like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are happening at the same time. And the cops are occupied with the events in Pulp Fiction. That's why nobody's going after the jewel thieves, because everybody's already in LA. They're already chasing after like jewels and all this stuff that's going on with Bruce Willis, you know, Marcellus shooting a bunch of people on the street, and they're all busy with that. That's why the rest of them can get away with this diamond thief, thing that's happening at the same time.
But I thought the cops were outside the warehouse the whole time, waiting for Tim Roth to make some kind of signal.
But I guess that's part of the. Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess this is a stupid theory. I never really thought about that. Well,
I do like that supposedly the producer in True Romance is like the grandson or something of the Bear Jew from Inglourious Bastards.
Right.
And so anyway, there's lots of little things. Obviously, we all know that, Vince Vaughn, Michael Madsen and what's his name? Travolta are, brothers. And so,
yeah.
All right. That's interesting. Was that all you had for the QT theories?
That's all I have for the QT theories, yeah.
Here's one I thought was interesting. Remember we watched The Witch last year?
Yeah.
So supposedly there's a scene where there's something wrong with the corn. It's got rot. It's something called ergot. Is it ergot? Ergot, which is a hallucinogenic fungus, and they're consuming it. And that actually explains what's happening with the family in The Witch. And that the director, Robert Eggers, basically just said on Reddit, AMA said, yeah, that's basically, he kind of leaves it open to your interpretation of what happened and why, but he did say that was there on purpose, and then maybe that's more just to heighten the insanity of everything that's happening. But what do you think? Do you think it was more just all in their heads because of this fungus they were consuming, or do you think that Bechdel was actually there?
That's interesting because I've read of mass hysteria things. I even say that the Salem witch trials, but may have been started because of that, because the grain and stuff had been basically coated with a fungus that's essentially LSD, and everybody was tripping the face off and being crazy. But they have had that happen in like France and stuff like that, where people are going insane back in the day. So I mean, I think that's interesting. I think that's a good historical callback, but I think personally I prefer it to be truly purely supernatural. I think the film's more fun that way, so I'm going to continue to think of it that way. But that additional layer that they're basically all tripping balls, and that's why they are the way they are.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. All right, what do you
got? So this one is and one I think I've heard before, but I'd be interested in your take. And I don't know if I could see Chuck Palahniuk doing something this subversive, but basically that Fight Club is Calvin and Hobbes retold, that the narrator played by Edward Norton is Calvin, and he's given up his friend Hobbes, his alter ego, long ago, and that he has a psychotic break, or he has a mental breakdown, and he recreates kind of this Hobbes-like figure in Tyler Durden, and basically it's a continuation of those types of adventures, obviously with somebody who's completely deranged.
I don't get that one. I saw that. I don't understand it. I mean, I understand conceptually what it is, but I don't see the point in roping those two properties together in that way. I don't think
there's a point. I mean, I don't think there's a point necessarily. I guess just if you've read any of Chuck Palahniuk's books, he's kind of a subversive, weird dude. So, I mean, I guess he could do that. Maybe I wouldn't even be surprised if that was like he was sitting around reading Calvin and Hobbes comic books, and like what if Calvin was an insane grown up and Hobbes was like a psychopath kind of thing. So, I mean, I could see him doing that, but I doubt he would have written it explicitly like that. But I mean, it could have been an
influence. I guess so. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know. I don't have much to say about it. So, yeah, I can't help you.
All right.
What do you think? Do you buy into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting take on it. I think it's as valid as any other take on it. I mean, I doubt it's specifically written to be Calvin and Hobbes, even though we've never gotten the narrator's name. He's just the narrator. But like I said, Chuck Palahniuk's a weird dude, and he's very subversive. So I could see him kind of, doing something like that. This beloved kind of wholesome or relatively wholesome comic from the 90s.
That'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I got one for you, Matt. What do you think? Are Batman Forever and Batman and Robin actually just films that take place in the Batman Burton universe?
That would be a lot easier to take because I really don't like those movies at all. I don't know. I think I don't think that they are necessarily, but I choose to believe that that's true because it's the only way I can explain how bad those two movies are.
Yeah, they say one of the theories
it makes me feel comfortable.
I agree. The city design kind of changes. It's not as, factory set. It's not as industrial. It's a little more neon and bright. There's the Bat credit card and the overall just campiness, that's what it is that after Batman Returns, he just kind of retires, but the world becomes kind of obsessed with it. And they make these movies as this kind of a celebration of the fact that they had Batman. And that's why the role changes in the two films by the two actors. So I don't know. I think I agree with you. I think that's the best way to think about it. I don't know, but I thought that was interesting.
Right. Now, what do you think of the John Candy as the devil in Home Alone?
I'm not familiar with that one. I guess I'd have to think about that. That
so
seems a little heavy for our boy. What's his name there? The director. Blanking.
John Hughes.
John Hughes to kind of come up with.
Yeah.
Or was it Chris Columbus? Was it John Hughes that did Home Alone?
John Hughes wrote it. John Hughes wrote it.
All right. That's right.
Yeah. So
there were no black people. That's right.
Right in Chicago, right? And basically, the theory is that Kate says at some point that she would sell her soul to get back to her son, and then soon after she says that, shows up and makes a bargain with her. And he's essentially a crossroads demon. She's trying to, she's at the airport. She's at a junction of travel, and he comes in and he basically, sells, talks her into a bargain to get back to her son, and the cost is her soul. Very deep. It is very dark.
That film's already dark in a way when you think about the fact that Pesci and what's his name, Dave? What's his name? I think I would
Daniel
be
Stern.
Daniel Stern would easily have been killed and slaughtered, or they would have killed Kevin. Let's be honest. But still, that is that's a whole new turn on Home Alone that I don't know if I'm interested in running down.
You don't want to poke that bear too much?
No, I don't. All right, Matt, what do you think of this? Inception. Cobb's totem is not the top. It's his wedding ring.
Interesting.
So what happens is when he's in the real world, he doesn't wear the ring. But in the dream world, he always has the ring on. It also makes the ending, I guess, and I'm reading here, less ambiguous. You can see in the final scene that he's not wearing his ring again. So that the logic being that he is in the dream world. So it's not as ambiguous an ending as originally done. What do you think about that? That Cobb's totem is on the top.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see Nolan definitely kind of giving us those red herrings and having us focusing on that, because I think, hasn't he even said that it's all the clues are there and you can tell, if you can piece it together, you can tell what's really true or not. I mean, I think, has he said something to that effect?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I could definitely see him doing that. Kind of be like a magician. Look at this over here when really you should be looking over here, kind of thing. So yeah, I totally buy that.
I'm gonna watch it again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jinx. All right, I'd be curious about that too. That would be fact. I still think if you just get to that point where does the top stop spinning, I don't know. Where do you come? So say that the general consensus theory that the top is his totem, and he reunites with his kids. Where did you come down with the original interpretation of the ending? Do you think he's in a dream world, or do you think he's back in reality?
And remind me, if the top starts to fall, he's in reality, right? Because if he's in a dream, it would just spin forever, right?
Correct.
Okay. I always took it that he's in reality, because I would think that the way he describes the totem is that when he spins the top, it would spin perfectly forever. And then I swear I see a little wobble at the end there. And I think that little wobble is what gives away that it's actually real, assuming that the top is the totem.
Right. That's where I always fell down as well. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, we could do this all day, but no, I think I'm good.
We should hold it for another time. Of course, there's the greatest one of all time, I think, which is who is the thing at the end of the thing? Did the monster survive? One I thought was interesting too, you can sit on. Fear the Walking Dead is a story of them becoming the bad guys, not just surviving, but it's them actually becoming some horrible people.
There you go.
What else? I guess that's about it. And then generally quickly, Disney has announced that they are pulling their films from Netflix in a year and establishing their own streaming service. We had talked about this briefly a couple weeks ago, or maybe even last week. We've hit peak saturation point on streaming, haven't we, Matt? What do you think?
Yeah, we definitely have. There's no way. I mean, so I've got Amazon Prime, Hulu, and Netflix. There's no way I am signing up for another streaming service. I don't care what they have. I love Star Trek. I have seen every episode of every series multiple times, and there's no way I'm signing up for CBS All Access just to see Discovery. I will wait until it's in a bargain bin on a DVD somewhere before I go out and do this. I'm just not doing it. I think we as consumers have to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, guys, you're getting a little greedy. I understand what you're trying to do, but enough is enough. Why don't you work with what you got?
Yeah, I don't think Disney's going to have a problem just because all the kids that are out there that the parents will be forced basically to sign up for, especially if you're a cord cutter. But I agree. I can't keep up at this point. It's just even I do the shows I usually watch. I'm 3 episodes out on Preacher, for Christ's sake.
Right.
So it's too much. I don't know what that means. I know competition is typically good, but they're not competing because they have all their own content.
Right.
So we're basically SOL.
Mm-hmm.
I think Netflix has done a reasonably good job lately of adding new and interesting content to their sites. So that's good. But the loss of Disney, which means the loss of Rogue One, the loss of Doctor Strange, all those Marvel films as well, and Star Wars films, that's going to be a big hit.
It is.
So one of the reasons why I haven't bought Rogue One is because it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Which I guess is part of Disney's evil plan.
That's exactly right. Unless you want to pay, I'm sure Disney's streaming service is going to be the most expensive one around. It's going to be like $25 a month or something like that.
Oh, easy, because they never drop prices on their films to buy either. Well, they're on sale for $19.99 all the time.
I know.
So.
Well, I mean, there's an article that came out this morning or maybe late last night that Netflix is doing everything they can to keep Marvel and Star Wars, and they're trying to negotiate with Disney. So we'll see. Maybe they'll be successful.
It's
not like Netflix. It is, but it's not like even Netflix has all the Marvel films. They only have like a handful. So
that's true.
Maybe they keep. Yeah, maybe they just kind of keep the latest ones, and then they kind of the older ones go off to Disney. That could work.
You can keep the offshoot Star Wars films because it's not like they have Force Awakens or any of the original films.
Right. Very true.
So, all right. So what's the solution, Matt? Is there one? And
I don't know. I think we're into the. Yeah, I mean, what I'm worried about, I mean, this whole thing with net neutrality. Can you imagine a nightmare if your ISP could charge you more to like access Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or whatever, and then on top of that, then you got to pay a subscription service? I mean, it's going to be. I mean, granted, we've had it good on the internet for a long time, where everything's free, and it's kind of the Wild West. It's more constrained than it was, like us old folk remember in the beginning, where you could literally do anything. But kind of moving. If we move to this future like that, I mean, I don't know, man. It's not going to work out well for us, because we're going from getting free TV to, okay, you pay for channels through your cable, to where now you can stream just particular services. But if you're going to hack it and slice it and dice it so everybody gets a piece of the pie, I mean, I don't see how that's going to work.
Yeah, I don't know. And I agree with you too. This whole net neutrality thing, I think, is going to be an absolute nightmare, especially for people like me who work from home. We'll have to buy like a premium service because of that. I mean, this is an absolute nightmare for people. If you're not following this, John Oliver, of course, has done a fantastic work on this. He's done 2 net neutrality shows. He had that whole "Go FCC Yourself" movement a while back as well, because they make it. Ajit Pai, who's the current head of the FCC, is an asshole. I mean, there's no way around it. And he's one of those guys who thinks he's funny, but he's not, with that goddamn huge mug, that he uses for comic effect. But if you go to the Go FCC Yourself, what happens? Because the FCC has made it really difficult to leave a comment about their plans. You have to click here, add a comment here, put your name here, click here, go here, then get redirected someplace else. It's a nightmare. And Oliver set up basically a direct link for where you need to go. So go ahead, comment their plans, what they're trying to do, join up with some groups. This has to stop. This net neutrality rollback is going to be a disaster for everybody. Right now, the internet is a utility, kind of like water and electricity. Can you just imagine not having the internet in your life right now? Imagine it. What would your life be?
It's impossible. You couldn't survive.
And that's why it's a utility. Yeah. So we have to do everything we possibly can to stop this. I've joined up with a bunch of stuff. I've donated some money. I've gone to some rallies here. I'm very involved down here in Tampa with stuff. So you need to do the same. You don't want to pay, you love your cable bill? Do you love how cable works? Because internet's going to be the same way.
Well, and then the irony of that is that, these cable companies and stuff are the one pushing, or one of the ones pushing for this kind of thing. And they've always fought to keep cable considered a utility. That's why you could only ever have one cable company in the area, right? That's why you could only have Comcast, or you can only have Charter or whatever, so it's always was treated as a utility. But now they're just doing the same kind of thing. Okay, well, we're not a utility when it doesn't serve us, kind of thing, as the ISP is not a utility. And what it drives me crazy, I'm not super political compared to Chris. Chris is really into this stuff, but this stuff drives me crazy because this is the kind of stuff that impacts everybody's day-to-day life. And I'm not saying the other issues that everybody's focusing on is important or not important, but it's like we're being distracted with kind of this big stuff, and then they sweep in this stuff that's really going to impact your day-to-day life, and nobody's paying attention to it. Even stuff that's really bad for the people. I mean, they've done it before. They always do that. I mean, it's even like with Bush, we're focusing on the war on terror, and then he's doing stuff like tort reform, which is a terrible thing to do. Which, if you haven't watched Hot Coffee, you should really watch that documentary.
That is fantastic documentary. Yeah.
But I mean, it's that type of stuff, and it's like we're so busy looking at North Korea and don't build the wall, and those are things we should be paying attention to. But while we're all looking at that, nobody's paying attention to all this other stuff that's going on over here, and it's gonna go through because nobody's fighting it. Nobody's paying any attention.
Yeah, that's depressing. Awesome. So Matt, next week. Why don't you email us?
On that note.
So anyway, why don't you shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com about your favorite fan theories. Where do you come down on streaming? Would love to hear your thoughts. Next week, Matt, Annabelle Creation. I'm sorry, we're going to do it. All right, we're doing Annabelle. It's actually reviewing quite well. I'm going to try and see Detroit. Ingrid Goes West is going to start playing. I don't know if it's going to be here. I think it's a little limited distribution right now. But there's a lot coming up, and then we're going to have Logan Lucky a few weeks after that. So I'm pretty excited. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, as always, thefirstrun.com, and you can find us. And I guess that's it, Matt.
All right.
So let's take a little extended break, and we will see you all soon. Take care.
Bye.
All right, everyone, chill.